Thief of Time, Part 3. Tick. Luce the sweeper was in his garden of 5 surprises, carefully cultivating his mountains. His broom leaned against the hedge. Above him, looming over the temple gardens, the big stone statue of Wen the Eternally Surprised sat with its face locked in a permanent wide-eyed expression of, yes, pleasant surprise. As a hobby, mountains appeal to those people who, in normal circumstances, are said to have a great deal of time on their hands. Luce had no time at all. Time was something that largely happened to other people. He viewed it in the same way that people on the shore viewed the sea. It was big, and it was out there, and sometimes it was an invigorating thing to dip a toe into, but you couldn't live in it all the time. Besides, it always made his skin wrinkle. At the moment, the never-ending, ever-recreated moment of this peaceful, sunlit little valley, he was fiddling with the little mirrors and shovels and morphic resonators and even stranger devices required to make a mountain grow to no more than 6 inches high. The cherry trees were still in bloom. They were always in bloom here. A gong rang somewhere back in the temple. A flock of white doves took off from the monastery roof. A shadow fell over the mountain. Luce glanced at the person who had entered the garden. He made the perfunctory symbol of servitude to the rather annoyed-looking boy in the novice robes. "Yes, master," he said. "I am looking for the one they call Luce," said the boy. "Personally, I don't think he really exists." "I've got glaciation," said Luce, ignoring this. "At last, see, master, it's only an inch long, but already it's carving its own little valley. Magnificent, is it?" Yes, very good," said the novice, being kind to an underling. "Isn't this the garden of Luce?" "You mean Luce, who is famous for his bonsai mountains?" The novice looked from line of plates to the wrinkled, little smiling man. "You are Luce? But you're just a sweeper. I've seen you cleaning out the dormitories. I've seen people kick you." Luce, apparently not hearing this, picked up a plate about a foot across, on which a small cinder cone was smoking. "What do you think of this, master?" he said. "Volcanic, and it is bloody hard to do, excuse my Klatchen." The novice took a step forward, leaned down, and looked directly into the sweeper's eye. Luce was not often disconcerted, but he was now. "You are Luce?" "Yes, lad, I am Luce." The novice took a deep breath and thrust out a skinny arm. It was holding a small scroll. "From the abbot, venerable one." The scroll wobbled in a nervous hand. "Most people call me Luce, lad, or sweeper. Until they get to know me better, some call me get out of the way," said Luce, carefully wrapping up his tools. "I have never been very venerable, except in the cases of bad spelling." He looked around the saucers for the miniature shovel he used for glacial work and couldn't see it anywhere. Surely he'd put it down just a moment ago. The acolyte was watching him with an expression of awe mixed with residual suspicion. A reputation like Luce's got around. This was the man who had, done practically everything if you listened to all the rumors, but he didn't look as though he had. He was just a little bald man with a wispy beard and a faint, amiable smile. Luce patted the young man on the shoulder in an effort to put him at ease. "Let us see what the abbot wants," he said, unrolling the rice paper. "Oh, you are to take me to him, it says here." A look of panic froze the novice's face. "What? How can I do that? Novices aren't allowed inside the inner temple." "Really? In that case, let me take you to take me to see him," said Luce. "You're allowed in the inner temple?" said the novice, and then put his hand over his mouth. "But you're just a "Oh, that's right, not even a proper monk, let alone a dong," said the sweeper cheerfully. "Amazing, isn't it? But people talk about you as if you were as high as the abbot." "Dear me, no," said Luce. "I am nothing like as holy. Never really got a grip on the cosmic harmony." "But you've done all those incredible—" "Oh, I didn't say I'm not good at what I do," said Luce, as he ambled with his broom over his shoulder. "Just not holy. Shall we go?" Luce," said the novice, following him from the ancient brick path. "Yes?" Why is this called the Garden of Five Surprises? What was your name back in the world, hasty young man? Said Lutze. Newgate Ludwen. Lutze held up a warning finger. Ah, Sweeper, I mean. Lot, eh? And Morpok, lad. Yes, Sweeper, said the boy. The sudden dejected tone suggested he knew what was coming next. Raised by the Thieves' Guild, one of Lud's lads. The boy, formerly known as Newgate, looked the old man in the eye, and when he replied it was in a sing-song voice of someone who'd answered the question all too many times. Yes, Sweeper, yes, I was a foundling. Yes, we got called Lord's lads and lasses after one of the founders of the guild. Yes, that is my adopted surname. Yes, it was a good life, and yes, I sometimes wish I still had it. Lutze appeared not to hear this at all. Who sent you here? A monk called Soto discovered me. He said I had talent. Marco? The one with all the hair? That's right, only I thought the rule was that all monks were shaved. Oh, Soto says he is bald under the hair, said Lutze. He says the hair is a separate creature that just so happens to live on his head. They gave him a field posting really quickly after he came up with that one. Hard-working fellow, mind you. Friendly as anything, provided you don't touch his hair. Important lesson there, you don't survive in the field by obeying all the rules, including those relating to mental processes. And what name were you given when you were enrolled? Lopsang, Sweeper. Lopsang Lud? Yes, Sweeper. Amazing. So, Lopsang Lot, you tried to count my surprises, did you? Everyone does. Surprise is the nature of time, and 5 is the number of surprise. Yes, Sweeper, I found the little bridge that tilts and throws you in the carpool. Good, good. And I found the bronze sculpture of a butterfly that flaps its wings when you breathe on it. That's 2. There's the surprising way those little daisies spray you with venomous pollen. Ah, yes, many people find those to be extremely surprising. And I believe the 4th surprise is the yodeling stick insect. Well done, said Lutze, beaming. It's very good, isn't it? But I can't find the 5th surprise. Really? Let me know when you find it, said Lutze. Lopsang Lord thought about this as he trailed after the Sweeper. The Garden of Five Surprises is a test, he said at last. Oh yes, nearly everything is. Lopsang nodded. It was like the Garden of the Four Elements. Every novice found the bronze symbols of 3 of them in the carved pond, under a rock, painted on a kite, but none of Lopsang's classmates ever found fire. There didn't appear to be fire anywhere in the garden. After a while, Lopsang had reasoned thus. There were in fact 5 elements, and they, as they had been taught, 4 made up the universe, and the 5th, surprise, allowed it to keep on happening. No one had said that the 4 in the garden were the material 4, so the 4th element in the garden could be surprise at the fact that fire wasn't there. Besides, fire was generally not found in the garden, and the other signs were truly rather in their element there. So he'd gone down to the bakeries and opened up one of the ovens, and there, glowing red hot below the loaves, was the symbol of fire. Then I expect that the 5th surprise is there is no 5th surprise, he said. Nice try, but no cylindrical smoking thing, said Lutze. And is it not written, oh, you are so sharp you'll cut yourself on one of these days? I haven't read that in the sacred texts yet, Sweeper, said Lopsang uncertainly. No, you wouldn't have, said Lutze. They stepped out of the brittle sunlight into the deep cold of the temple and walked on through ancient halls and down stairways cut into the rock. The sound of distant chanting followed them. Lutze, who was not holy and therefore could think unholy thoughts, occasionally wondered whether the chanting monks were chanting anything or if they were just going, ah! You could never really tell with all that echo. He turned off the main passage and reached for the handles of a pair of large red lacquered doors that looked behind him. Lopsang had stopped dead some yards away. Coming? But not even dongs are allowed in there, said Lopsang. You'd have to be 3rd Jim Ting at least. Yeah, right. It's a shortcut. Come on, it's drafty out here." With extreme reluctance, expecting at any moment the outraged scream of authority, Lopsang trailed after the sweeper. And he was just a sweeper, one of the people who swept the floors and washed the clothes and cleaned the privies. No one had ever mentioned it. Novices had heard about Lutze from their very first day, how he'd gone into some of the most tangled knots of time and had unraveled them, how he constantly dodged the traffic on the crossroads of history, how he could divert time with a word and used this to develop the most subtle arts of battle. And here was a skinny little man who was sort of generically ethnic, so that he looked as though he could have come from just about anywhere, in a robe that had once been white before it fell to all those stains and patches and sandals that needed to be repaired often. And a friendly grin, as if he was constantly waiting for something amusing to happen. And no belt at all, just another piece of string to hold his robe closed. Even some novices got to the level of grey dong in their first year. The dojo was busy with senior monks at practice. Lopsang had to dodge aside as a pair of fingers whirled past arms and legs, blurring as each sought an opening, paring time to thinner and thinner slivers. "You sweeper!" He looked around, but the shout had been directed at Lutze. A Ting, only just elevated to the third gym by the fresh look of his belt, was advancing on the little man, his face red with fury. "What for are you coming in here, cleaner of filth? This is forbidden." Lutze's little smile didn't change, but he reached in his robe and brought out a small bag. "It's a shortcut," he said, pulled a pinch of tobacco, and while the Ting loomed over him, began to roll a cigarette. "There's dirt everywhere, too. I'll certainly have a word with the man who does this floor." "How dare you insult?" screamed the monk. "Back to the kitchens with you, sweeper!" Cowering behind Lutze, Lopsang realized that the entire dojo had now stopped to watch this unfold. One or two of the monks were whispering to one another. The man in the brown robe of the dojo master was watching impassively from his chair with his chin in his hand. With great patience and infuriating delicacy, like a samurai arranging flowers, Lutze marshaled the shreds of tobacco in the flimsy cigarette paper. "No, I reckon I'll go out that door over there, if you don't mind," he said. "Impudent! Then you are ready to fight, enemy of dust?" The man leapt back and raised his hands to form the combat of the hake. He spun around and planted a kick on a heavy leather sack, hitting it so hard that its supporting chain broke. Then he was back to face Lutze, hands now held in advancement of the snake. "Ai, shou, hi-ye!" he began. The dojo master stood up. "Hold!" he commanded. "Do you not want to know the name of the man you are about to destroy?" The fighter held his stance, glaring at Lutze. "I don't need to know the name of a sweeper," he said. Lutze rolled the cigarette into a skinny cylinder and winked at the angry man, which of course only stoked the anger. "It is always wise to know the name of a sweeper, boy," said the dojo master, "and my question was not addressed to you. Tick." Jeremy stared at his bedsheets. They were covered in writing, his own handwriting. It trailed across the pillow and onto the wall. There were sketches, too, scored deeply into the plaster. He found his pencil under the bed. He had even sharpened it. In his sleep, he had sharpened a pencil. And by the look of it, he'd been writing and drawing for what would appear to be hours, trying to draw a dream. With, down on side of his eiderdown, a list of parts. It had all made absolute sense when he had seen it, like a hammer or a stick or Wheelbright's gravity escapement. It had been like meeting an old friend, and now he stared at the scrawled lines. He'd been writing so fast he ignored punctuation and some of the letters too. But he could see the overall sense in there. He'd heard of this sort of thing. Great inventions sometimes did arise from dreams and daydreams alike. Didn't Hepzibah Whitlow have the idea that adjustable pendulum clock as a result of his work as a public hangman? Didn't Wilframe Balderton always say that the idea for the fishtail escapement came after he'd eaten too much lobster? Yes, it had all been so clear in the dream. By daylight, it just needed a bit more work. There was a clatter of dishes from the little kitchen behind his workshop. He heard Down dragging the sheet behind him. "I usually have," he began. "Those, sir," said Igor, turning away from the range. "Lightly browned, I suspect." "How did you know that?" "And Igor learns to anticipate, sir," said Igor. "What a wonderful little kitchen, sir. I have never seen a drawer marked spoons, which just had spoons in it." "Are you any good at working with the glass, Igor?" said Jeremy, ignoring this. "No, sir," said Igor, buttering the toast. "You're not?" "No, sir. I am bloody amazing at it, sir. Many of my masters had needed special apparatus, not readily obtainable elsewhere, sir. What was it you wanted?" "How would we go about building this?" Jeremy spread the sheet on the table. The slice of toast dropped from Igor's black-nailed fingers. "Something wrong?" said Jeremy. "I thought someone was walking over my grave, sir," said Igor, still looking shocked. "Ah, you haven't ever actually had a grave, have you?" said Jeremy. "Just a figure of speech, sir. Just a figure of speech," said Igor, looking rather hurt. "This is an idea I've had for a clock." "The glass clock," said Igor. "Yes, I know about it. My grandfather Igor helped build the first one." "The first one? But it's just a story for children, and I dreamed about it, and Grandfather Igor always said there was something very strange about all that," said Igor. "The explosion and everything." "It exploded because of the metal spring." "Not exactly an explosion," said Igor. "We're no strangers to explosions, us Igors. It was very odd. And we are no strangers to odd either." "Are you telling me it actually really existed?" Igor seemed embarrassed about this. "Yes," he said. Then again, no. Things either exist or they don't," said Jeremy. "I'm very clear about that. I have medicine." "It existed," said Igor, "and then after it did, it never had. This is what my grandfather told me, and he built that clock with the very hands." Jeremy looked down. Igor's hands were gnarled, and now, as he came to look at them, he had a lot of scar tissue around the wrists. "We really believe in heirlooms in our family," said Igor, catching his gaze. "Sort of hand-me-downs," said Jeremy. He was wondering where his medicine was. "Very droll, sir," said Igor. "But Grandfather Igor always said that afterward it was like a dream, sir." "A dream?" "The workshop was different. The clock wasn't there. Demented Dr. Winkle, that was his master at the time, wasn't working on the glass clock at all, but on the way of extracting sunshine from oranges. Things were different, and they always had been, sir. Like it never happened." "But it turned up in a book for children." "Yes, sir. Bit of a conundrum, sir." Jeremy stared at the sheet with its burden of scribbles. An accurate clock. That's all it was. A clock that'd make all other clocks unnecessary, Lady LeJean had said. Building a clock like that would mean the clockmaker went down in time-keeping history. True, the book had said that time had got trapped in the clock, but Jeremy had no interest whatsoever in things that were made up anyway. A clock measured. Distance didn't get tangled up in tape measure. All that a clock did was count teeth on a wheel, or light. Light with teeth. He'd seen that in the dream. Light not as something bright in the sky, but as an excited line going up and down like a wave. "Could you build something like this?" he said. Igor looked at the drawings again. "Yes," he said, nodding. Then he pointed to several large glass containers around the drawing of the glass central column of the clock. "And I know what these are," he said. "In my dream, I imagined them as fizzing," said Jeremy. "Very, very secret knowledge those jars," said Igor. "Can you get copper rods here, sir?" "In Ankh-Morpork?" "Easily." "And zinc?" "Lots of it, yes." "Sulfuric acid?" "By the carboy, yes." "I must have died and gone to heaven," said Igor. "Just put me near enough copper and zinc and acid, sir," he said, "and then we shall have the spark." Tick. "My name," said Lutze, leaning on his broom as the irate Ting raised a hand, "is Lutze." The dojo went silent. The attacker paused in mid-bellow. Aye, how, oh, she. The man did not move, but seemed instead to turn in on himself, sagging from the martial stance into a kind of horrified penitent crouch. Lutze bent over and struck a match in his unprotesting chin. "What's your name, lad?" he said, lighting his ragged cigarette. "His name is Mud, Lutze," said the dojo master, striding forward. He gave the unmoving challenger a kick. "Well, Mud, you know the rules. Face the man you've challenged, or give up the belt." The figure remained very still for a moment, and then cautiously, almost in a theatrical manner, decided not to give offense and started to fumble with his belt. No, we don't need that," said Lutze kindly. "It was a good challenge, a decent eye, and a very passable high, I thought. A good martial gibberish all around, such as you don't often hear these days, and we would not want his trousers falling down at a time like this, would we?" He sniffed and added, "Especially at a time like this." He patted the shrinking man on the shoulder. "Just you recall the rule your teacher here taught you on day one, eh? And, why don't you go and clean yourself up? I mean, some of us has got to tidy up in here." Then he turned and nodded to the dojo master. "While I am here, master, I should like to show young Lopsang the device of erratic balls." The dojo master bowed deeply. "It is yours, Lutze the sweeper." As Lopsang followed the ambling Lutze, he heard the dojo master, who, like all teachers, never missed an opportunity to drive home a lesson, say, "Dojo, what is rule number 1? Even the cowering challenger mumbled along with the chorus. "Do not act incautiously when confronting a little bald, wrinkly, smiling man." "Good rule, rule 1, said Lutze, leading his new acolyte into the next room. "I have met many people who could have heeded it to good advantage." He stopped without looking at Lopsang Lod and held out his hand. "And now, if you please, you will return the little shovel you stole from me when we first met." "But I came nowhere near you, master." Lutze's smile did not flicker. "Oh, yes, that is true. My apologies. The ramblings of an old man. Is it not written? I'd forgot my own head if it wasn't nailed on. Let us proceed." The floor in here was wood, but the walls were high and padded. There were reddish-brown stains here and there. We have one of these in the novices' dojo, sweeper," said Lopsang. "But the balls in that are made of soft leather, yes?" said the old man, approaching a tall wooden cube. A row of holes was halfway up the side that faced down the length of the row, and they travelled quite slowly, I recall. Yes," said Lopsang, watching him pull on the very large lever. Down below there was a sound of metal on metal, and then the urgent gushing of water. Air began to freeze from joints in the box. "These are wooden," said Lutze calmly. "Catch one." Something touched Lopsang's ear, and behind him the padding shook as the ball buried itself deeply and then dropped to the floor. "Perhaps a shade slower," said Lutze, turning a knob. After 15 random balls, Lopsang caught one in his stomach. Lutze sighed, pushed the big lever back. "Well done," he said. "Sweeper, I'm not used to," said the boy, picking himself up. "Oh, I knew you wouldn't catch one," said Lutze. "Even our boisterous friend out there in the dojo wouldn't catch one at that speed. But you said you had slowed it down, only so that it wouldn't kill you. Just a test, see? Everything's a test. Right, let's go, lad. I can't keep the abbot waiting any more." Trailing the cigarette smoke, Lutze ambled away. Lopsang followed, getting more and more nervous. This was Lutze. The dojo had proved that, and he knew it anyway. He looked at the little round face as it gazed amicably at the angry fighter and known it. But just a sweeper. No insignia, no status. Well, obviously status, because the dojo master couldn't have bowed lower for the abbot, but now he was following the man along passages where even a monk was not allowed to go on pain of death. Sooner or later, there was surely going to be trouble. "Sweep, I really ought to be back to my duties in the kitchens," he began. "Oh, yes, kitchen duties," said Lutze. "To teach you the virtues of obedience and hard work, right?" "Yes, sweeper." "Are they working?" Yes." "Really?" "Well, no." "They are not all that they are cracked up to be, I have to tell you," said Lutze. "Whereas, my lad, what we have here," he stepped through an archway, "is an education." It was the biggest room Lobsang had ever seen. Shafts of light speared down from glazed hole on the roof, and below, more than 100 yards across, intended by senior monks who walked above it on delicate wire walkways. Lobsang had heard about the mandala. It was as if someone had taken tons of colored sands and thrown them across the floor in a great swirl of colored chaos. But there was order fighting for survival in the chaos, rising and falling and spreading. Millions of randomly tumbling sand grains would nevertheless make a piece of pattern which would replicate and spread across the circle, rebounding or merging with other patterns, and eventually dissolving into general disorder once again. It happened again and again, turning the mandala into a silent, raging war of color. Lutze stepped out onto a frail-looking wood and rope bridge. "Well," he said, "what do you think?" Lobsang took a deep breath. He felt that if he fell off the bridge, he'd drop into the surging colors and never, ever hit the floor. He blinked and rubbed his forehead. "It's evil," he said. "Really?" said Lutze. "Not many people say that the first time. They use words like wonderful." "It's going wrong." "What?" Lobsang clutched the rope railing. "The patterns," he began. "History repeating," said Lutze. "They are always there." "No, they are—" Lobsang tried to take it all in. There were patterns under the pattern, disguised as part of the chaos. I mean, the other patterns. He slumped forward. The air was cold, the world was spinning, and the ground rushed up to enfold him, and then stopped, a few inches away. The air around him sizzled as though it was being gently fried. "Newgate Lot," Lutze said. "The mandala is—" But where were the colors? Why was the air wet and smelling of the city? And then the ghost memories faded away. As they disappeared, they said, "How can we be memories when we have yet to happen? Surely what you remember is climbing all the way up to the roof of the Bakers' Guild and finding that someone had loosened all the capping stones, because that just happened." And a last dying memory said, "Hey, that happened a month ago." "No, we are not, Lutze, mysterious falling kid," said the voice that had addressed him. "Can you turn around?" Newgate managed with great difficulty to move his head. It felt as though he was stuck in tar. A heavy young man in grubby yellow robe was sitting on an upturned box a few feet away. He looked a bit like a monk, except for his hair, because his hair looked a bit like an entirely separate organism. To say that it was black and bound up in a ponytail is to miss the opportunity of using the term elephantine. It was hair with personality. "Mostly my name is Soto," said the man underneath. "Marco Soto. I won't bother memorizing yours until we know if you're going to live or not, eh? So tell me, have you ever considered the rewards of spiritual life?" Right now? Certainly," said. "Yes, Newgate," he thought. "That's my name, yes. So why do I remember Lobsang? I was thinking about the possibility of taking up a new line of work." "A good career move," said Soto. "Is there some kind of magic?" Newgate tried to move, but hung, turning greatly in the air just above the waiting ground. "Not exactly. You seem to have shaped time." "Me? How did I do that?" "You mean you don't know?" "No." "Will you listen to him?" said Soto, as if talking to a genial companion. "There's probably the spin time of a whole procrastinator being used up to prevent your little trick causing untold harm to the entire world, and you don't know how you did it." "No." "Well, then we will train you. It is a good life, and offers excellent prospects. At least," Soto added, sniffing, "better than those that confront you right now." Newgate strained to turn his head further. "Train me in what exactly?" The man sighed. "Still asking questions, kid. Are you coming or not?" "How? Look, I'm offering you the opportunity of a lifetime. Do you understand?" "Why is it the opportunity of a lifetime, Mr. Soto?" "No, you misunderstand me. You, that is Newgate Ludd, are being offered, that is, by me, the opportunity of having a lifetime, which is more than you will have shortly." Newgate hesitated. He was aware of a tingling in his body. In a sense, it was still falling. He didn't know how he knew this, but the knowledge was as real as the cobbles just below him. If he made the wrong choice, the fall would simply continue. It had been easy so far. The last few inches would be terminally hard. I must admit I don't like the way my life is going at the moment, he said. It may be advantageous to find a new direction. Good. The bearded man pulled something out of his robe. It looked like a folded abacus, but when he opened it up, parts of it vanished with little flashes of light, as if they moved somewhere where they could not be seen. What are you doing? Do you know what kinetic energy is? No. Well, it is what you currently have far too much of. Soto's fingers danced on the beads, sometimes disappearing and sometimes reappearing. I imagine you weigh about 110 pounds, yes? He pocketed the little device and strolled off to a nearby cart. He did something that Newgate couldn't see and came back. In a few seconds you'll complete your fall, he said, reaching under him to place something on the ground. Try to think of it as a new start in life. Newgate fell. He hit the ground. The air flashed purple. The laden cart across the street jerked a foot into the air and collapsed heavily. One wheel bounced away. Soto leaned down and shook Newgate's unresisting hand. "How do you do?" he said. "Any bruises?" "It does hurt a bit," said the shaken Newgate. "Maybe you're a bit heavier than you look. Allow me." Soto grabbed Newgate under his shoulders and began to talk him off into the mists. "Can I go and—" "No. But the guild—" "You don't exist at the guild." "That's stupid. I'm in the guild records." "No, you're not. We'll see to that." "How? You can't rewrite history." "Bet you $1. "What have I joined?" "Oh, well, just the most secret society that you can imagine." "Really? Who are you then?" "The Monks of History." I've never heard of you." "See? That's how good we are." And that was how good they were. And then the time has flown past. And now the present came back. "Are you all right, lad?" Lobsang opened his eyes. His arm felt as though it was being wrenched out of his body. He looked up along the length of the arm of Lu Tse, who was lying flat on the swaying bridge, holding him aloft. What happened?" "I think maybe you were overcome with excitement, lad, or perhaps vertigo. Just don't look down." There was a roaring below Lobsang, like a swarm of angry bees. Automatically, he began to turn his head. "I said, don't look down. Just relax." Lutze got to his feet. He raised Lobsang at arm's length, as though he was but a feather, until the boy's sandals were over the wood of the bridge. Below, monks were running along the walkways and shouting. "Now, keep your eyes shut, don't look down, and I'll just walk us both to the far side, all right? I remembered, back in the city when Soto found me, I remembered," said Lobsang weakly, tottering along behind the monk. "Only to be expected," said Lutze, "in the circumstances. But I remembered back then, I remembered about being here, you and the mandala. Is it not written in the sacred text? There's a lot goes on we don't know about, in my opinion," said Lutze. "I have not yet come across that one either, Sweeper," said Lobsang. He felt cooler air around him, which suggested they had reached the rock tunnel on the far side of the room. "Sadly, in the writings they have here you probably won't," said Lutze. You can open your eyes now." They walked on with Lobsang rubbing his head to take away the strangeness of his thoughts. Behind them, the livid swirls on the wheel of color that had centered on the spot where Lobsang would have fallen gradually faded and healed once again. According to the first scroll of Wen the Eternally Surprised, Wen and Clodpool reached the green valley between the towering mountains, and Wen said, "This is the place. Here there will be a temple dedicated to the folding and unfolding of time. I can see it." "I can't, master," said Clodpool. Wen said, "It's over there." He pointed, and his arm vanished. "Ah," said Clodpool, "over there." A few cherry blossom petals drifted down onto Wen's head from one of the trees that grew wild along the streamlets. "And this perfect day will last forever," he said. "The air is crisp, the sun is bright, there is ice in the streams. Every day in this valley will be this perfect day." "Could get a bit repetitive, master," said Clodpool. "That is because you don't yet know how to deal with time," said Wen, "but I will teach you to deal with time as you would deal with a coat, to be worn when necessary and discarded when not." "Will I have to wash it?" said Clodpool. Wen gave him a long, slow look. "That was either a very complex piece of thinking on your part, Clodpool, or you were just trying to overextend a metaphor in a rather stupid way. Which do you think it was?" Clodpool looked at his feet. He looked at the sky. Then he looked at Wen. "I think I'm stupid, master." "Good," said Wen. "It is fortuitous that you are my apprentice at this time, because if I can teach you, Clodpool, I can teach anyone." Clodpool looked relieved and bowed. "You do me too much honor, master." "And here's the second part to my plan," said Wen. "Ah," said Clodpool, with an expression that he thought made him look wise, although in reality it made him look like someone remembering a painful bowel movement. "A plan with a second part is always a good plan, master. Find me sands of all colors and a flat rock. I will show you a way to make the currents of time visible." Right. And there is a third part to my plan." "A third part, eh?" "I can teach a gifted few to control their time, to slow it and speed it up, and store it and direct it like water in these streams. But most people will not, I fear, let themselves become able to come to do this. We have to help them. We will have to build devices that will store and release time where it is needed, because men cannot progress if they are carried like leaves on a stream. People need to be able to waste time, make time, lose time, and buy time. This will be our major task." Clodpool's face twisted with the effort of trying to understand. Then he slowly raised a hand. Wen sighed. "You're going to ask what happened to the coat, aren't you?" he said. Clodpool nodded. "Forget about the coat, Clodpool. The coat is not important. Just remember that you are the blank paper on which I will write." Wen held up a hand as Clodpool opened his mouth. "Just another metaphor, just another metaphor. And now, please, make some lunch." "Metaphorically or really, master?" "Both." A flight of white birds burst out of the trees and wheeled overhead before swooping off across the valley. "There will be doves," said Wen as Clodpool hurried off to light a fire. "Every day there will be doves." Lutze left the novice in the ante-room. It may have surprised those who disliked him that he took a moment to straighten his robe before he entered the presence of the abbot, but Lutze at least cared for people, even if he did not care for rules. He pinched his own cigarette and stuck it behind his ear, too. He had known the abbot for almost 600 years and respected him greatly. There weren't many people Lutze respected. Mostly, they were tolerated. Usually the sweeper got on with people in an inverse proportion to their local importance, and the reverse was true. The senior monks, well, there could be no such thing as bad thoughts among people so enlightened, but it is true that the sight of Lutze ambling insolently through the temple did tarnish a few karmas. To a certain type of thinker, the sweeper was a personal insult, with his lack of any formal education or official status, and his silly little way and his incredible successes. So it was surprising that the abbot liked him, because never had there been an inhabitant of the valley so unlike the sweeper, so learned, so impractical, and yet so frail. But then, surprise is the nature of the universe. Lutze nodded to the minor acolytes who opened the big, varnished doors. "How is his reverend today?" he said. "The teeth are still giving him trouble, Lutze, but he is maintaining continuity and has just taken his first steps in a very satisfactory manner." "Yes, I thought I heard the gongs." The group of monks clustered in the center of the room stepped aside as Lutze approached the playpen. It was, unfortunately, necessary. The abbot had never mastered the arts of circular aging. He had therefore been forced to achieve longevity in a more traditional way, via serial reincarnation. "Ah, sweeper," he burbled awkwardly, tossing aside a yellow ball and brightening up. "And how are the mountains? Wanna big it? "I am definitely getting volcanism, Reverend One. It's very encouraging." "And you are in persistent good health," said the abbot, while his podgy little hand banged a wooden giraffe against the bars. Yes, your reverence, it is good to see you up and about again. Only for a few steps so far. Alas, Picket, what a bigot! Unfortunately, young bodies have a mind of their own. Picket! You sent me a message, your reverence. It said, put this one to the test. And what did you think of our one picket now, young Lopsang Lot? An acolyte hurried forward with a plate of rusks. Would you care for a rusk, by the way? The abbot added. I see picket. No, reverend, I have already eaten, said the sweeper. Lot is a puzzle, is he not? His tutors have nicey Picket. Picket told me he's very talented, but somehow not all there. But you have never met him, and don't know his memory, and so, Picket, I would value your uninfluenced observations. Picket! He is beyond fast, said Lucy. I think he may begin to react to things before they even happen. How can anyone tell that? One teddy, one teddy. I put him in front of the machine of erratic balls in the senior dojo, and he was moving toward the right hole fractionally before the ball even came out. Some kind of telepathy, then? If a simple machine has a mind of its own, I think we're in really big trouble, said Lucy. He took a deep breath, and in the hall of the mandala he saw the patterns and the chaos. You let a neophyte see the mandala, said Chief Acolyte Rinpo, horrified. If you want to see if someone can swim, push him in a river, said Lucy, shrugging. What other way is there? But to look at it without the proper training. He saw the patterns, said Lucy, and reacted to the mandala. He did not act, and the mandala reacted to him. He wanted to think about that one. When you look into the abyss, it's not supposed to wave back at you. It was teddy, wah, strictly forbidden even so, said the abbot. Clumsily he fumbled among the toys on his mat and picked up a large wooden brick with a jolly blue elephant printed on it and hurled it awkwardly at Rinpo. Sometimes you presume too much, sweeper. Look at elephant. There was some applause from the acolytes at the prowess in animal recognition. He saw the patterns. He knows what is happening. He just don't know what he knows, said Lucy doggedly. And within a few seconds of meeting me, he stole a small object of value, and I'm still wondering how he did it. Can he really be as fast as that without training? Who is this boy?